do this. In Christianity, you had the Desert Fathers, the Philokalia. I don't know if anyone has tried reading that. It's quite a beautiful book if you can read it. Saint Teresa of Avila, the Spanish mystic during the Spanish Inquisition, her and her disciple or follower, St. John of the Cross. These were real hardcore meditators. In India, you've had it. All the Upanishads are written from these really deep experiences that people were having. And China, as soon as Buddhism got to China, it was picked up very quickly because they had this feel for that ultimate goal. What is the ultimate goal, this enlightenment? Well, we can study it, we can talk about it, I can give you the definitions for it. But for this period of 7 weeks, we're not too focused on what the ultimate goal is. We focused on what you need to do. So as we get into the meditation practice, we are embarking on this same path that all these people have followed before us. And so we're joining a worldwide, humanity-long tradition of people who are interested and willing to stop and turn the mind around and turn the mind back inwards on a path of discovery. So, meditation is something that we will, or one does learn only by doing it. Nobody can really teach you meditation. I can't say certain things and then you just catch it and then you can do it. I watched this documentary, again, YouTube, of a small group of people who made bicycles that when you turn the steering wheel left, the wheel will turn right. And when you turn right, turn your handlebars right, the wheel will turn left. And they had great fun putting everybody on these bicycles and watching them fall off. And just one or two of the researchers were really determined to master it. And they tried every technique they could think of to try and master it. And they just couldn't. And then the guy said, one day it just clicked. And from that second on, I could ride the bicycle. And then he got back on a regular bicycle and it was, he's falling off for a few minutes, but then that clicked and then he could switch between the bicycles. There was the moment where the knowledge came alive. This is one way of learning things. In psychology, you call it insight learning. That means the animal that you are testing will suddenly figure out what it is that needs to be done. Very briefly, in psychology, they had two schools, behaviorism and cognitive insight learning. And the first school, they did these experiments with cats, and they put a cat in a box, and the cat has to escape from the box to get the food. To escape from the box, it has to hit a lever. When it hits the lever, the door opens, it gets its food. You put the cat back in the box, and what does the cat do? Does the cat hit the lever again? No, it carries on doing random actions until eventually it hits the lever. And then you put the cat back in the box. Poor cat gets frustrated. And slowly, but slowly, it gets faster and faster for the cat to hit the lever. But the cat never has a moment where it figures out what to do. Compared to monkeys, they had chimpanzees and they put them in a room. In the room is a table, a chair, and a broom. And high up on the wall is some bananas hanging. And the only way to get the bananas is to move the table, put the chair on the table, stand on the chair with the broom, and you can unhook the bananas. And it took a while for the chimpanzees to figure this out. But the moment they'd figured it out, every time you put them in that room, they will immediately do that action. It means that they've cognitively understood the process. So, to cognitively, when you get that moment where you suddenly understand something, you get like a flush of happiness. It's a little boost of endorphins will go around the body. I remember distinctly the first day that I understood how a magnet worked, and it was only about 3 years ago. I was watching Richard Feynman. If anyone watched Richard Feynman, it's probably one. It's probably a bit old for most of you, a bit young for it. And I suddenly, that's it, that's how a magnet works. I could never understand why you could attach a magnet to a piece of metal and it doesn't fall off. But there's no battery. And now I understand it. Don't ask me to explain it to you. But... So there is a moment that we get of happiness when we have attained to new knowledge, when we've understood something new. But the meditation that we do is not like that. Meditation is something that you don't apply your mind and your intelligence and then you've figured it out. That's what it is. It's not something that you can do even slowly over a matter of weeks, over 7 weeks. You're not going to get to the end of 7 weeks and then, now I know meditation. I just go and do it, and every day I sit there for an hour and I'm just, hey man, I'm really cool. It's not going to happen. Meditation is something that you can only learn by doing it. And this was a difficulty for many years trying to teach meditation, because I was trying to make people understand. And you can't. You may understand something intellectually. You may understand how a magnet can stick to the side of the fridge without the need for a battery. But you'll never understand meditation and that's what it is. So the meditation is only something that you can learn by doing it. You have to just do it. It's your journey. It's you turning your attention around and bringing it inside your own mind. You might call it a self-reflectivity. So instead of the mind pouring outwards into the things of the world, all those things that are exciting, stimulating, interesting, YouTubes and emails and books and conversations and TVs and parties and food and all the rest of it, these will all pull your attention outside of yourself. And one reason you like those things is because you're not feeling yourself. So, for example, when you go to see a movie, what's the difference between a good movie and a bad movie? The difference is, a good movie sucks you in. You get pulled into the story. If you're not pulled into the story, well, you know, the seat is too small and the person next to you is rustling toffee wrappers and someone else is scratching and the air conditioning isn't right, or it's too hot or it's too cold. You know, you don't like to feel yourself. We like to be completely absorbed outside of ourselves. So turning the attention back inwards is quite a job. You're reversing the flow of the mind, if you like. The Buddha called it the worldly stream, and he said you're going against the worldly stream. There are different ways to look at it, but for example, the Chinese were very much, when Buddhism got to China, they were very much, well, you go into the worldly stream, you go into the flow of nature. But Indian Buddhism was very clear, as you go against that worldly stream of the attention flowing outside of yourself into things to do, things to have, things to listen to, things to eat, things to occupy your attention. I had this one friend, he was studying Thai, and he went to I can never remember, Unity or Union. There's two really good schools in Thailand, in Bangkok. And the school was, at that time, near Plenchit Centre. And he lived at On Nut. So 5 days a week he would take the SkyTrain from On Nut to Plenchit. And a very good friend of mine, but he never had any interest in meditation until the very end, but that's another story. And he said to me that he goes by SkyTrain, and he said, but fortunately, he said, he got his iPod. Shows how long ago that was. He said, fortunately, I've got my iPod. It's a total lifesaver. Like, why is your iPod a lifesaver? Because that trip from On Nut to Plenchit was too unbearable because he didn't have something to occupy himself with. He needed something that would just occupy his attention. Otherwise, he'd have to just feel himself, right? And he felt that was very uncomfortable. And this is true for pretty much everybody. Until you train yourself, it's always going to be more comfortable to have your attention outside of yourself into some kind of activity. Bringing the attention into yourself at first is going to be a little uncomfortable. So sometimes when people are really new to meditation, they can feel a little panicked, or the breath will go too fast, because you're not accustomed to it. However, what's happening is, as you bring your attention in, the mind is still wavering a lot. And the mind that's wavering or moving is uncomfortable. If we keep practicing, you get accustomed to feeling yourself, knowing yourself, being wakeful. And this starts to become the most beautiful thing that you can experience. So yesterday, while I'm doing Photoshop, trying to get my Photoshop installed, it took me all day and I still failed. Because it's not as nice. It's better to bring my attention inside. My attention is home. My attention is still. My attention is bright. I don't need to go anywhere at all. This is what we call a refuge. There's a technical word, it's called a sarana, or refuge. And a refuge means it's a place that you can place your mind which doesn't depend on anything. Doesn't depend upon having the right food to eat. Food is a really big thing, You might not think it is, but you come and live in the monastery and you get the kind of food that we have to eat. And, within a few days, you're starting to realize what a big thing food is for most people. I had a friend of mine, he had gout, and the doctor told him drink water. He's like, I don't like to drink water. Our food obsessions are so strong that they'll even prefer illness to changing our kind of food and drink habits. So this refuge doesn't depend upon having the right food, doesn't depend upon having a nice building or a nice house or a nice place, doesn't depend on having the nicest people around you, doesn't depend upon your partner. So many people I know, their happiness depends on their partner. It's not a very reliable place to to ground your sense of happiness in your partner, right? Other people are not terribly reliable. Who was it said hell is other people? It was Sartre, was it? Yeah. So, if you have developed this refuge, what happens is that you have a place to place your mind, which is always there, it's always right. It's independent of the states of mind. This is important. Because meditation is not making your state of mind very happy and very beautiful.